Thank you. Okay, let's talk tech pivots, refactoring, bad decisions, or not. We'll see. So, okay. So let me introduce myself, and I'm Pablo Ruiz-Múzquiz. I'm the CEO at Penpot. And last year I was giving a talk in Riga, Ubuntu Summit at Riga, and I wanted to share how particular the team that was building Penpot was and still is. You know, I share this unique ratio between designers and developers, that we have one designer per two developers, which is a unique ratio that you don't typically see. I also discuss how important it is to bring open source to the design process. And my point last year was how much was at stake for the developer world in terms of the open source design and prototyping challenge. Because we do believe that, we do believe that Penpot could become one of the most important open source projects of the decade. That's how we see it, and that is what motivates us. And I know where I am. I'm here at the Ubuntu Summit, so, and yet we feel comfortable saying something like this. Now, it's a year later, and a lot has happened in the design and prototyping world. We can discuss, acquisitions that failed, discontinued software, generative AI, all that stuff, right? But one thing that happened to us was that we continued to experience massive growth, whether it was new users using the SaaS or self-host, or whether it was, or the way people were using Penpot. And that became unsustainable for us. So it is something that you can enjoy, but only for a while, I guess, because the way people were using Penpot made some decisions, technical decisions that we made in the past, feel awkward, the least. So, so that's the intro, but let me tell you, for those of you who don't know what Penpot is, and this is just a screenshot. Penpot is a web-based design and prototyping tool. It's meant for anyone that is building user interfaces to enjoy that process. So, and it's meant for both designers and developers. That is one thing that we feel very motivated about, to bring both worlds together and collaborate instead of the traditional silo world where we have this waterfall model. So that is Penpot. It's open source. We use the MPL 2.0 license, which is very web native. And even though the primary use is user interfaces of all types, including terminals and whatnot, it does excel at web user interfaces. And you'll see where I'm going with that. But of course, we have a long tail of other use cases, and people keep surprising us with how they use and abuse Penpot every single day. It's real-time collaboration, so it's meant for teams. So it's really something that feels very native to today's online world. What it's not is an illustration app or a graphic design app. It is not. It can be used like that, but it's not like tool like Inkscape, for instance, in that sense, if you know what I mean. So you would typically use them in tandem, like we do. So you get Inkscape for certain parts of the process, and then Penpot for other parts of the process. So speaking of Inkscape and vector graphics, I need to discuss SVG here. And this is where I'm getting into the business of the talk. Because when we started Penpot a few years ago, we made two decisions. To use the browser's DOM as an infinite canvas to draw whatever we wanted for that real-time collaboration process, and also to stick to SVG as the native format for Penpot. Those were the two decisions. And we did that because we've been in open source for 2.5 decades, some of us, and we understand the value and importance to adhere to open standards and to go, on top of giant shoulders, and that for us meant browsers, all of that. But it was also a very practical decision too, because we could offload the rendering bit to the browser. We would just output SVG, and the browser would do that heavy lifting for us. And that meant that we could focus on other innovation that was not heard about. I just referred to the fact that we are uniting designers and developers. We are not going after what other closed source design tools are doing. We want to broaden the audience for the design tools. So it was great for us that we could just forget about the rendering bit and focus on new ways of understanding the design process and involving developers at the same time. So, and I'm saying this because building a design and prototyping tool that is web-based, it is a very tough project. It is one of the toughest projects because it has all the challenges. You have the precision, you have the performance, you have the reliability, you have the real-time connection, you have conflicts that you have to resolve, and also it is a productivity tool, so it needs to give you freedom to create. We cannot bias your process. We need you to feel like, yeah, it's a tool, and there's options, and yet I can use them in any way I want. So it also is challenging in terms of how you build a builder's tool, okay? But with these decisions that we made about the DOM and the infinite canvas and the SVG, we thought this is perfect because we've managed to do the best thing and also the right thing. So, no false dichotomy. We have it all. We are very ambitious, and we were fine with this. Now, we are now quickly approaching 1 million users. It could be more because we cannot really know how many people are using Penpot self-host. I was in Amsterdam this week attending Blender conference, and we just learned that some university in Hong Kong just produced a 20-hour course on Penpot. So this university is teaching design to students using Penpot. We didn't know about that. And so we keep learning about new pockets of usage around the world. But let's just say it's 1 million users, split between SaaS and self-host. And then what is happening is that people are starting to use Penpot in bigger projects, and bigger and bigger and bigger, more ambitious, because they feel they can scale up their designs. And developers are joining, and they're adding more complexity. And we have even examples where people are forking Penpot and creating verticals, creating website builders with Penpot. So we are getting a bit of the WordPress, okay, the WordPress, thing about a framework and not only a CMS, right, thing to Penpot. I'm saying that this is perhaps another great week to discuss WordPress. And then people are loving our approach to design because they are enjoying how we are favoring the declarative design instead of imperative design. And again, if anyone's interested in both paradigms and what they represent, we can discuss, during the conference. But think declarative design more about just setting up some expected outcome, but not deciding exactly how to reach to that outcome. And CSS as a language very well represents the declarative mindset. And people are loving that too. And we make sure that we use that for layout and alignment rules. So So all is good, right? All is good in Penpot world. Huge traction, people doing crazy stuff. Well, it's not. It is not because our decision a few years ago had two flaws. And it might be very obvious to you now, like it is obvious to us now, but really we wanted to make sure that we would have it all. And so, but yet, I'm here to discuss some bad news. So the thing is that we bet on browsers evolution and SVG support. We decided that browsers would continue to evolve and support SVG. But they are not doing that. 2.0, the SVG 2.0, is already a year old, and the first draft dates back to 2018. So we already started creating Penpot after that. And we were hoping that they would, browsers would support SVG in a performant way, and they're not doing that. They're still using 1.1 spec from 2011. Wow. So not only we have that issue, but also the way the DOM is managing this infinite canvas with SVG is not very performant. It's struggling. And it's fine if you draw some shapes here and there and some gradients and blur, but when you are really dealing with complex user interfaces and interactive prototypes, and then that infinite canvas really becomes infinite in a way, then this simple approach just breaks down. You can see the cracks in the process. So that was, we could say, okay, let's blame the browsers. No, let's blame all the major browser makers. And we actually even, I was thinking, just knock on the door of all those and say, how can we fix this? How can you help us make sure that we stay true to open standards, but also to the browser world, and we are browser native and web honest and all that. But there was a third issue that we could not anticipate some years ago. And it was our own evolution of the tool. I just mentioned declarative design, but it gets more complex than that. The way we are building what you can build also with Penpot, this interactive UI experience, and all the different things you want to introduce to get a richer experience when building live objects as user interfaces, or why not, cannot rely on just abusing SVG all the time. SVG it was not meant for this. And we were using SVG for things SVG was not conceived for. And yeah, if you download our SVGs, you can re-import it into Inkscape or any other capable SVG tool, but there's a lot of metadata there. And we're piggybacking SVG to add logic in a way that it was starting to feel awkward. Like, for instance, multi-stroke support was just hacking our way. We were hacking our way into SVG 1.1. It just felt bad. So it was not just browsers and DOM and infinite canvas, but also our own evolution. And we could not have anticipated things, I think. I feel okay about this. Like a few years ago, we were not in this position. We could not predict the future. So we've made the decision to decouple the format, our file format, from the rendering aspect of it. So what do? We have a dilemma here. And it's a big one because it's not just a technical one, but it almost feels as an identity crisis for the team. This is, we're people that we are free and open source enthusiasts, builders, that really believe that we should have everything, like, as I said, the best thing and the right thing. And I feel great saying this in this audience, in this Ubuntu Summit. We want to adhere to open standards. We want to make sure we are interoperable. We want to be very transparent about everything and give you ownership and agency when you're using a tool like Penpot. So after a lot of consideration, we decided that, unfortunately, we could not continue to this path. And so we have made the decision, and I'm just kind of sharing this world premiere here with you, to go to Canvas. And it's good and bad in some ways, because as probably most of you know, when you are using the DOM, you access the addressable memory that you have is almost what you have for the browser and the CPU. But when you go Canvas, you have WASM memory limits. You can address 2 gigabytes, or in some cases, 4 gigabytes. That's it. So you have to be very smart about how you're going to use that addressable memory. But work is well underway. We didn't want to rush the decision. We made a lot of proof of concept. I'm going to share you a sneak peek of that in a moment. And the solution is Canvas based. It's WebAssembly. We're going to use Skia as a library, and Rust as a language of choice. Part of the process was to choose between C++ and Rust, and we decided that Rust was the best option, but not because of anything inherent to the language. C++ and Rust, for us, going the WebAssembly path were equally valid, but because of the way we were seeing kind of a trend in terms of language programming, people going into one language or not the other, and we thought it would be more accessible and easy for us to also make the community participate actively if we went Rust. And we're very happy with this decision. Rust keeps getting better, and developer experience is really improving every day. So now our stack is Clojure and ClojureScript, and then Rust and JavaScript. Because for those of you who might not know, Penpot is developed in Clojure programming language, which is one of those extreme use cases where you go also for extreme solutions because of the functional paradigm that works so well with continued mathematical operations that have to be like formally perfect, right? But this will decouple the render engine from the Clojure part of the stack, and we think it's fine. We think there's no need for Clojure to own that piece. So far, so good. Do you like? I mean, is this of any interest? I don't know. This could be kind of some having a beer and just crying a bit and things like that. But I'm here in this plenary room, but I feel fine. I feel like you're being empathetic with me here and with the rest of the team. We want to share, members of the community have expressed, we were very fearful of how the community will react to this, particularly with the SVG aspect, but a few days ago, I posted this online in the community forum before I was going to come here, and we got an amazing support from the community, and particularly what they wanted is for us to share exactly how we're doing this along the way. So you should be, if anyone's interested in that transition, even if you're not interested in the old or the current mode, you might want to enjoy, to look into how we're building this rendering engine. Because we are dealing here with massive amounts of information that need to go smooth in the user experience. As I was saying, I was attending the Blender conference this week, and they have similar issues in the 3D world, right? They need to be very performant also, not just have amazing features, but make sure that it just goes fast. And so they know very well, what we are feeling right now. So this is a multi-month refactoring project. I'm happy to say that this is not a year's, worth of effort, or mean, yeah, depending on how you measure that. This is not like expect a new release that will have the new rendering in by 2027. Not at all. This is not like that. Fortunately, we are a great software development team, and fruits of this labor should pop up in some upcoming release in the next few months. So this is good in that sense. We feel fine. So this is I'm going to show you just a sneak peek. It doesn't really tell you much. Well, you now have some context. So perhaps you can enjoy this 10-second clip better than other people without the context. I was allowed by Belén Albeza to share this video only if I read a disclaimer, and it's like something like, this is a non-optimized proof of concept that tells nothing of the true potential. You know, it's like, yes, Belén, but give me the video, right? So this is really early stage thing. So it's not even pre-production quality. This is something hacked in a week. But it does show, and you'll see now, Penpot user interface dealing with 10K shapes. 10K shapes, it's a lot of shapes for a user interface. Like, just think of user interfaces. Why would you need 10,000 polygons there, right? Well, it gets to that point that, you know, it's not the typical user interface project, but you might eventually get to several hundreds and then several thousand, and then you get excited, and then you add more and more. And I don't know where the World Guinness record lies, but probably in the 50K or perhaps 1,000K. I mean, you can split that into different pages, right? You should do that. But for whatever reason, you might want to have really the infinite canvas, just one canvas, a monolithic canvas, and you have everything there. So we need to make sure that you can do that. So what you're going to see now is just a proof of concept, but it gives you an idea of what a 10K shape canvas looks like and how this should go. So this is a Penpot user interface, and this is 10K shapes, and this is going super smooth. And so instead of colored rectangles, you can imagine, you know, buttons and labels and whatever a user interface has. So pretty good. We're pretty excited about this. Let me see. Yeah, so let's start wrapping up. So we are very excited about this, even if it somehow makes us feel sad, because we really wanted to go the native browser, the DOM, and the SVG or some flavor of SVG, some extended SVG, but we are excited about the approach. Probably we are excited because we know that we won't reach, at this rate of growth, we won't reach that kind of glass ceiling, that performance bottleneck, where people will say, it's amazing, Penpot is amazing, has all the tools and features that I need, but it's not super fast. And that's a feature itself. So we cannot afford to hear that. We cannot have the best tool that it's low. So we are now excited that, okay, that's not going to be an issue. So that's wonderful. Because I don't think there's in nobody's interest to keep innovating in those stuff and yet have that performance problem, right? And the good thing is that this does not mean that we are postponing cool innovation for a design and prototyping tool like Penpot, because we first need to fix this. We can do this at the same time as other things that we're building. And we are building native design tokens support that is coming up very soon. So if you're familiar with design systems in general, or if you're familiar with libraries in general, whether it's a developer or design tokens brings those tiny encapsulated design decisions into those, with radius or a color, or a typography decision, or a scale, whatever, and you can actually create those design tokens as functions of other design tokens. So it is really a revolution in making sure that design can scale up. And this is something developers are going to enjoy a lot, and also technical designers, because this is where bridging the gap, this is how bridging the gap looks like in a way, we believe. So design tokens is coming also in the next couple of months or so. So again, we can go separate tracks, performance, this. And then we're also building Penpot variations, which is a superior solution to other tools have, like Figma variants, things like that. We think there's better ways to do that. And advanced editing for vector graphics, including plugins also. And actually, I'm super excited to share with you that we are releasing in 2 days the plugin system for Penpot. And so that's 2.3 release. This is huge because it means that everyone can actually build on top of Penpot and create integrations. Well, we already have the API, but things within the Penpot experience. And we want to make sure that we have some encouragement for the community to think about crazy ways to add extensions, plugins to Penpot, and that's why we are releasing. We're announcing our contest, tons of prizes everywhere in the world. So, if you yourself or you happen to know anyone that's into the front-end development world or technical design or even UX people, they might want to look into this. And of course, Penpot, but like the contest itself, the plugins, and we have a Penpot hub that will be released next week, and you will see the typical list of plugins there. So I think a final thought I would like to share with you, and I think the Ubuntu Summit is a perfect space where it has to resonate with you, is that this is those moments where you feel that if you make that engineering effort and challenge, you could really have a profound impact. This we see when I was saying at the beginning, very presumptuously probably, that we think Penpot is one of those key open source projects of the decade. We come from this strong belief that unless we bring open source to design and design to open source, we are not going to truly unlock the potential of software development in the world. And since this is also about collaboration across different disciplines, we just feel great about this. So by doing this tech pivot now, instead of waiting until the pain would be probably unbearable, we think we're going to elegantly navigate this and reach and get to that profound impact sooner. And by sooner, I mean 2025, like very revolutionary. And I think that's it. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Pablo. I think we have time for some questions. And I see someone already rushing to the mic, or not? No? They're rushing to the break or to take photos with the mascots. Do we have a question there? Please.
Thank you. Any technical design choice has its own pros and cons. I'm just curious, going down the road of WASM and Rust, what do you see as potential risks or concerns that you're going to have to work with?
I think we are waiting for a more deep dive into that with technical documentation, the pros and cons from the team. But I think so far, we don't see any major limitations. We don't see, I think the 2 gigabyte limit, for instance, the addressable memory, is my primary concern. And because all the 32-bit addressable. But I think since we're coming from the DOM, we will be just moving to that memory only what we need in terms of the runtime, and keeping the DOM for kind of static assets. But that, for me, that would be a challenge. Because tools like, for instance, Figma, which is like, they have 85% of the market, they have that limitation. And they have, is one of those frequently asked questions, how do I go beyond the 2 gigabyte limit? And the answer is, create smaller projects. There's no solution for that. So I think for us, when we say scaling up design, we want to make sure that you can automate and scale up through this alliance, between designers and developers, and that is only going to make designs just explode in size. So we cannot take current sizes and scales as a reference. So, but I think if we are smart and we just do a hybrid approach, then this is a superior solution. And in terms of like the language, like WebAssembly is not going anywhere, and Rust, we think that before we get into some troubles, I think we will, it's a long way before we hit some roadblocks. And it's fine if this tech pivot only lasts for 5 years or 4 years. It's fine. We're not like now making a decision for the next decade necessarily. So, but yeah, if you want to follow, our internal discussions, I invite you to join the community space, and there will be, regular updates on how we see things. Thank you for the question. That was a great question.
We have another one, other two actually.
Okay. This might be a bit early question to ask, but while it's great to use open document formats, I think actually using something like interoperability is not just about that. So do you have any plans yet to how to be able to integrate things like Inkscape back to that workflow and what that could look like?
Great question. So 2 parts to my answer. One is that we continue to export SVG. So SVG is still a format that you can take and import, so that's fine. We will be using the new engine to make sure that's that, because that is very important for us. Otherwise, there's an issue there with the identity crisis. So Inkscape should feel into the process the same. It's just that we are not using that for rendering in the browser, right? It's just that's the bit that changes. But then we are going to release very soon our own file format. So it used to be non-interesting, but now suddenly it is, because we can now make a decision. It's basically a zip file with a lot of JSON files in there. And by doing that, we will very quickly get into the, okay, then I can use my storage layer as a Git repository because it's just a file. And so if you change that file, you change in the Penpot project. And I can see Inkscape and other tools interfacing, or your IDE, interfacing directly with your Git repository and changing that file. And having a weird async full duplex mode and all the benefits from a version control system right there. But in terms of the SVG and Inkscape, it should remain the same. It's just an internal rendering decision that has changed. And then the file formatting is going to be amazing to have that. And it's not going to be an open standard. It's going to be just an open format, but hopefully super easy for people to hack in. Thank you.
This is the last question, I guess.
I'm very interested to hear a little bit about your experience with WASM. Call me WASM curious. And in particular, whether you see relevance applications for it outside of the browser.
Good question. I don't know. I'm not an expert in WASM. My background is Python and Go. So this is far beyond what I master. But if that's a question that you or other people would like to get answered, like from the team that is going to, in 2024, just go full in, I can definitely discuss that. And yeah. Were you thinking of any, are you already thinking of, no, just, yeah. Not on top of my mind, but we'll see. And probably, just very quickly, the fact that people are forking Penpot to build other weird stuff might actually get WASM into also weird use cases, and then we will both read, what's going on. But yeah, great question, thank you. All right, well, thank you again very much. Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you very
It was a
much,
pleasure.
Pablo. A big round of applause for him, please.